Damian, how are you today? This is fascinating. This is so lucky I was able to get you as the second guest on my podcast. Um, my mind is blown that you've come on. You have so much going on. Where do we even begin? So, Damian, I met Damian a few years ago when I had been traveling in Mexico. What do you remember about that time, and what was your life looking like, and what's happened since then? Just paint the picture, everything that you've got going on, everything, this journey you've been on.
Hey Ben, thanks so much for having me on. I'm doing well. Yeah, I remember our meeting in uh, in Mexico pretty well. It was a pretty epic trip that I had. It was kind of a booking a one-way ticket to Mexico trip and not knowing where it was going to go. And I specifically remember meeting you. I was checking out this Spanish school, and they wanted to show me around, like the teachers, and they brought me over to a table with you and a teacher. And I
Alex.
specifically
That was Alex.
remember, yeah, I specifically remember our first meeting being interesting because our entire conversation was in Espanol. So it's just like a really interesting way to get to know somebody for the first time speaking a language that we both were, let's say, struggling with at the time and trying to make use of.
Of course. And go into your background a little bit before that. Where are you from originally?
Yeah, so I grew up in Westchester, New York.
Awesome. I remember now. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, and my family, like my grandparents, are originally from Ukraine. Um,
mm-hmm.
my grandparents were like World War II survivors.
Wow.
Pretty crazy stuff. My grandmother actually just published her memoirs, a book about her survival story in World War II, including like escaping from Russians and then finding her way into a Nazi labor camp
Wow.
and escaping from there as well. Um,
That's wild. And you speak Ukrainian. Obviously, I think I've heard you speaking it a few times.
oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I think you might have heard me speaking it just now. I'm at my cousin's house and have like my godson and niece and nephew here, and my cousin's encouraging me to speak to them in Ukrainian, so that they learn. So
Nice.
um, I was just speaking it.
Um, so you you had a background in coding, I remember, or maybe not coding, but something tech. You've always been interested in tech. Um, Tell me about tech and how it kind of shaped your life.
Yeah, I was always pretty good at math and science, and so um, my parents and counselors kind of just advised me to go into engineering, and so I got a degree in mechanical engineering, and then I went on to get my master's as well, and with a lot of like data oriented, um, data science and mechanical engineering. So I worked for a healthcare company, I worked for an electric utility, and then I worked for a gas company, and I was creating data models that could help us optimize our systems. So rather than just like waiting for things to fail or things like that, we would use data such as like flow rates and temperatures and all this type of things to give us early warning about what's going on our system and actually give like a visual representation. So at any moment you can see exactly what's going on in the system. So it really helped us optimize our operations. Um, but of course, I kind of eventually moved away from that to find a different path.
Totally, I want to get into that path. Um, I find it interesting you talk about this sort of optimization. I can see your eyes light up when you talk about it, and it makes me think because I know you as someone who is always trying to optimize everything in your own life, your own meditative practices, and your spirituality, everything. Uh, your podcast is Spiritus Radio. I just loved. I love that podcast. All the episodes of it. Every episode of that podcast is like a gold mine of life advice. It's just super, and like you go into this stuff about self optimization, and that's played a big part in my life too. Like having that influence at a young age of seeing people such as yourself who are fully out of the matrix and just focused on efficiency and improving and the path forward. So I've always respected you for that. Um, Tell me about the new path. Where has it led you? What happened after we parted ways? We went off and kind of lived our own lives. So we had been friends for a bit there. Uh, Tell me what happened and where it's led you. Talk to me.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's an interesting segue. So, as you said, as an engineer, I focused a lot on optimization, but I worked a lot with systems. And now I'm much more oriented with health and wellness and spirituality. And so now I'm kind of optimizing my own system, my own body through like biohacking principles. I don't know if
I'm
you've heard
really
the
interested
term.
in that. Yeah.
Um, so there was kind of a spark that led me here. And it's interesting because sometimes it's our own suffering that causes us to make a drastic change in our lives. And for me, it was my own health that was suffering. I suffered a back injury while skiing. I was a bit ahead of the curve in terms of I was working remotely as an engineer back in 2017, so several
Wow.
years before COVID, and that gave me the ability to live out in Lake Tahoe and ski as much as I wanted.
I didn't know you were a skier. I love skiing as well.
Yeah,
Um,
it became an obsession of mine, and I pushed it a little too hard. Um, Landed really hard from a jump and compressed my spine.
how old were you when that happened?
That was, let's see, like 2019.
Wow.
So I was like maybe 30 years old or something like that.
Yeah, and I remember I met you in 21, I want to say. How did that impact you, that fall? So you fully compressed your spine. You had to go to the hospital, I'm assuming. How they had to pull you off the mountain?
Well, no, it wasn't like that. So I compressed my lower two vertebrae of the spine, but I didn't learn that till later. And I actually got back on the chairlift. I didn't even fall. It was just like a hard impact
Mm.
and like a flat landing after having like 20 feet of air. So
Wow,
you can
20 feet of air.
imagine on a flat, hard surface, maybe even slightly uphill. Um, and so I went back on the chairlift and I took another run and I was like, no, I'm done for the day. But I kind of ignored the injury, kept trying to do all the things that I was still doing. And I was just like taking Advil to like
Yeah, yeah.
numb the pain. And one day I was like, I ran out of Advil and I was vacuuming the stairs and I was like picking up the vacuum with one arm, like just thinking, like just not being mindful of my body at all. And I just collapsed on the floor and like laid on my back and like called somebody to come help me.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah,
and it was like, yeah, you can numb the pain with Advil, with Tylenol, with painkillers, but you're not addressing the underlying problem with your body. And I went to the doctor, I went to the hospital, I went to urgent care, I went to several doctors and tried to get help, but I didn't really get the help I needed. So I found my own path. I started getting massages, chiropractic, acupuncture, even flotation tanks. Have you heard of these float tanks, sensory
yeah, like
deprivation
the
tanks?
sensory deprivation, yeah.
Yeah, you float in like 94 degree
I'm
Epsom
scared to do
salts.
that. Yeah, it's you have to be very comfortable with yourself, I think. It's yeah, I might try it at some point, but I respect you for doing that. Okay,
I would,
so
yeah, I would describe it as like a really deep meditation, and you can
yes.
do it for like up to 2 hours. Some people do longer. You're just laying there with zero senses, dark. It's
Yeah.
dark. You don't hear anything. It's wild. Some people go on spiritual journeys just from that.
It's interesting how you talk about this change. this back injury, and I've been hearing again and again these back injuries. It's always something with the back. They just change people and like have big impacts on people's lives. And apparently, the medical system is really bad with the back, and like they make you get a surgery, and then there's like it's an if the first surgery is optional, the second surgery isn't optional. I'm sure you've heard that expression. Like they've got this whole system, and I definitely isn't really. I really like the path you've chosen, trying to take it into your own hands and figure this stuff out.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that Western medicine is powerful and it has its uses, but I think it's not the only path. And a lot of times it's like treating the symptoms rather than fixing the underlying cause of the problem. And when I went to the doctor, he just told me, like, oh, everyone at some point in their lives, like all men at some point in their lives have back pain and just deal with it. It'll go away eventually. It was like literally like zero
Interesting.
support.
Yeah.
And yeah, I started doing a lot of research. I was also like smoking a lot of weed because it was like a natural painkiller, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
know something about that. Yeah.
and so it was just like, it was this period where it was like a month where I was just laying in bed and smoking weed because it was like all I could do for the pain. But it left me with like so much time just being by myself, like alone with yourself for a month with nothing to do. Like you can imagine that is a path to go into yourself as well.
Did you was that sort of the first time you had kind of were forced to be alone or for that long, and or were there more times in your past where you had similar thing? Was this like the first time you were really forced to confront your inner self and dwell on everything?
Yeah, I think it was the first time that I went that deep. Like I did always enjoy spending time alone and things like that, but there's always like distractions, right? There's
Of
always
course.
something you can do, like you could be on your phone or go out or whatever. But it was like even just holding the phone up was like work for my back. So I just like literally just like laid there. Sometimes I listened to like an audiobook, but it was just like it was a very passive state.
That's fascinating. It forced you to not pick up your phone and think of that like maybe it was some higher power forcing you to be in that state so you could become really enlightened about life without these attachments.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. It's pretty interesting, I think.
I think it kind of like, in a way, pushed me towards doing things that I later learned are like spiritual practices. Like, I
Mm.
couldn't really eat because I would get like inflammation and pain whenever I ate. So I actually lost like 30 pounds. I was like very skinny, which later I learned like fasting in itself is a spiritual practice and can heal your body. I also started doing some yoga, which was super healing for me. Yin yoga, which is a very like lunar practice, they call it. It's very like you have your yin and yang, right? And the yang is like the fire, the solar, the force, and the yin is the more feminine, lunar, passive practices. So this practice really like helped me slow down, helped me meditate, helped me breathe, connect to my own body, and understand my own pain. And the other thing I started doing, I was getting into Tim Ferriss at the time. I don't know if you know him,
I
but
haven't heard
he's
of him.
he's got a podcast and
Did he
some
go on
books.
Rogan maybe in the past? I don't know.
Maybe he has his own podcast, um, and he has a book called Tools of Titans, which I was reading, and he talked about like psychedelics
Mm.
um, and different ways to use them. And then that's when I learned about microdosing. So I started micro or mini dosing mushrooms and LSD.
Wow.
And it was really interesting because it connected me more to my body. Like I would take the LSD and then it would kind of help me understand how to move my body and stretch in certain ways to make the pain go away. And that was like one of the first times that I was able to make the pain go away without the use of painkillers. And even like I started doing, like I was using heat and cold. I remember one time I heated up my fireplace and there was these like iron grates, and I just like stuck the hot iron against my back to like
Wow.
put heat in that area, and it was like super intense, but I could feel like this healing sensation from it.
It's fascinating. It didn't leave any scarring or anything.
No, no.
Wow. Um, Talk to me about Lake Tahoe because I find that interesting. So, how long were you there, and I feel like what we always hear about Lake Tahoe, it's like tech, it's vibrant, it's young, it's fast paced, it's all of this stuff. Did that influence you in any way? What did you think about the culture there, and uh, how did that impact you being at Lake Tahoe?
Yeah, I was not happy in New York, and I was looking for something different. What ultimately brought me there is like my desire to be a ski bum, chasing my
Nice,
dreams of skiing.
nice.
And I had quit my job, went out there, started skiing. And the interesting is, my old job called me back, and they're like, "We want you back. You can work remotely, and we're going to give you more money and more freedom of your schedule."
Yeah,
And those were all things I asked for before I quit, but they didn't
nice.
give them to me at the time. But
Wow.
I walked away, and then a
That's
few
the
months
first
later, they
time
were
I've heard
like,
of that happening.
"Yeah,
Like you quitting, making demands, and then they come back to you, and like, wow, that's fascinating. But so you take the old job back,
yeah,"
with a
which gave
higher
me some,
salary.
like some spending money, so I didn't have to stress too much about money.
And did you keep the
And
ski thing going, or did you have to lessen that with the job?
I did keep the ski thing going. I mean, not every single day, but until
Nice.
my injury, and that's what kind of changed it all. But I love Lake Tahoe. I was walking distance to the lake. I went on a walk to the lake every day. It was like my
Wow.
spiritual practice. Like I would watch the sunset over the lake. And it was like you went through a meadow, and then you went through the woods, and then you were at a lake. It was like three different like micro climates, like just on this little 2 mile walk that I did.
Wow.
And it was a very like outdoor culture, like hiking in the summer, skiing in the winter. Even like I had encounters with bears.
Wow. Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
There's a few of them. I think the most interesting one. Oh, actually, I remember the one. It was like my back was still injured, right? But I was like strong enough to go on a bike ride, and I was riding on my bike through the woods, and all of a sudden I see something darting across, like from my left, from my peripheral vision, and it's like coming, like it's about to intersect my path, and I'm like, oh shit! So I slammed on the brakes, and like the bear came, and he ran all the way to the edge of the path and stopped and like ducked behind a bush, and he was probably 10 feet away from me. So I slowly turned the bicycle around, but like just stood there and waited. I didn't want to run because I know that the black bears are known to chase people if you see them running. I really didn't want to like try to bike away from the bear because I could see that he would be faster than me.
Were you sure it was a black bear?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was, but they have like big black bears there.
Wow. Because
And
there, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that grizzly territory as well, or out there? Um, I, maybe
sup-
it,
supposedly not. They
okay.
say that California only has black bears. You have to go to kind of like Wyoming to like Yellowstone to see the grizzlies and stuff like that, or Canada.
But regardless, so you're biking, and then this giant bear. How big was it? Was it like a? Could you tell like roughly? So it comes running.
At
It's
least twice my size, like at least like 300
wow.
pounds. Yeah.
Um, it comes running. It stops at the edge of the path. What
Yeah,
happens next?
about 10 feet away from me. I turned my
Yeah.
bike around, and meanwhile there's like very little traction on the road. It's like, almost like sand. So I know if I try to bike away from him, I'm not going to get away, right? So I'm like, hopefully he leaves. And then all of a sudden he gets up on 2 feet, goes like fully up, arms up, where like now he's like 6, 7 feet tall because he's like totally standing, arms up, looks at me, and then puts his legs down and darts in the opposite direction of me.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, thank God. Like he was actually scared as well. Like,
Holy shit.
but
What was going through your head? Did you like freeze? Like, were you thinking maybe you'll try to scare it? Like, what was going through your head when that happened? in that moment?
Normally, you try to scare it or not bother it. Um, you don't want to run because they'll chase you. And what was going through my head is I had just listened to this podcast. It was like the Meat Eater podcast, and it was about this guy that hunts, and he talked about this encounter with a black bear where it came after him, and he figured out that it came after him because he was injured. So these animals, they have like an instinct to like recognize injured people or injured animals because it's kind of an easier target for them. And so like in my mind I was like, he might come after me because I'm injured. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to like fight or get away because I was at like maybe 40% of my normal strength at the time with that injury. So there's a little bit of fear, but it was like I came back to my practice, my yoga practice. I just stood there and breathed deeply and stayed calm. And I think that truly helped with the situation. If you panic in the situation like that, actually, a cousin of mine came to visit Lake Tahoe, and they ran away from a bear, and the bear started chasing them. And luckily, there was another set of hikers there that kind of scared the bear away. But it just goes to show that if you panic in these like dangerous situations, you're going to create more danger for yourself. So having this practice where you can stay calm in the face of fear is a very powerful tool.
It's a game changer, 100%. Um, so you go to Mexico, you buy a ticket, you didn't know where you were going, what was going to happen. You took a big leap of faith when you did that. Where's the first place you went?
To be honest, I went well before I went to Mexico. I left Lake Tahoe. I like quit my job, left my relationship, left my apartment. I was like, I knew I needed like warmer weather, something different. And I had been in Costa Rica for 2 months.
Wow,
I drank ayahuasca for the first time, which is really
nice.
powerful, and I got more in touch with the kind of spiritual community in Central America. And then when I came to Mexico, I went to Puerto Escondido,
Of course.
and I spent like my first week there was like a yoga retreat, and I stayed at this really cool place. And I had thought like, of course, I thought like, okay, I'll spend my first week in Puerto, and then probably go somewhere else. Like I had no plan. It was
That's what
literally
everyone
one
thinks when they get
one way
there, but
ticket.
everyone stays. Yeah, yeah. And where did
I
you go?
was
Did you go to Oaxaca to get there, or you went straight there?
I flew into Mexico City. I spent a
Okay,
couple hours in Mexico City eating some tacos,
nice.
and then I flew into the airport at Puerto Escondido, and I just fell in love. Like it was walking distance to the beach, beautiful women, surfers, yoga, like all the stuff that I desired was just right there. Lower cost of living compared to the U.S. I was just blown away. I had never been to a place like that, and I fell in love. I lived in the Spanish school for a week.
Yeah,
I was like, I rented a scooter for a
I
couple months, and
remember.
I was just like driving around everywhere. I found my own apartment. I thought I was gonna live there like
It was
super long
nice.
term.
And I remember you said like I've decided to make a change in my life where when I ride my scooter, I'm not planning on going somewhere in specific. I'm just planning on seeing where life takes me. And I thought that was really cool that you said that. And it was how you were living. It was really like there I had a similar experience where I went there. I'd never been anywhere like this before, and I fell in love with it, and I stayed for a long time. I must have been there in the area. I was sort of migrating to Zipolite, if you remember that, back and forth for a few months, maybe 3 months. I loved it there.
Yeah,
Um, and I saw you for like a kind of a brief window in terms of that. So, sort of after I had left, after we fell out of contact, where did you go from there? Did you end up leaving that apartment and like everything?
I got an apartment, and then I also did my 200-hour yoga teacher
I
training, which
remember
was
when you were doing that.
a
Yeah.
goal of mine. Yeah, so I was really into yoga, and I was like, I want to go deeper into my practice. So that was super powerful, and like I really loved it, but there was something that was missing for me in Puerto. I wasn't sure what it was, and I felt ready to move on. Kind of it
Nice.
happened suddenly for me,
How long were you
and
there?
close to 3 months, I would say.
Nice.
About 3 months, yeah. And then I went to Oaxaca City.
Nice. I was there
Um,
like 2 weeks, Oaxaca City.
yeah, yeah, same. It was a cool place. But the apartment that I got there was like it was more older people there, and it wasn't
Very
exactly
different vibe
it
from
wasn't.
Puerto.
Yeah, it was cool to see the Oaxacan culture
Hmm.
for sure. Um, but ultimately, I'm not a city guy. Like I'm not like put me in nature or
Nice.
the beach or the mountains, but I don't need to spend a lot of time in the city. But from there, I made a decision which kind of scared me a little bit. I had already done like drank ayahuasca twice in Costa Rica, and I decided to do a week long retreat in Brazil with the Yawanawa tribe, which is a native Brazilian Amazonian tribe.
How did you
And
find out about that? How did this happen?
yeah, so my shaman from my second ayahuasca experience, who was very powerful shaman, very like good um, leader for me in the ayahuasca journey, and he invited me to go on this trip to Brazil, and he's like, I'm gonna be there receiving the medicine, and these are the people that taught me to serve medicine, um, that we're gonna be doing it with. So I was like, wow, that's just sounds like next level. Like, how often do you get the opportunity to literally do ayahuasca, the medicine, with indigenous people who have been practicing this for, I think, thousands of years or about 1,000 years. Um, so it was a good experience. Well, I don't know if good is the right word. Powerful experience.
Powerful,
It
definitely.
was in nature, like on this mountain, beautiful views in Brazil, and it was a week long retreat with 3 nights of medicine work. And let me tell you, I'm not going to go specifically into like details of what happened in my journey, but I would say that ayahuasca is a powerful medicine. It's like a difficult journey. I would say it's maybe the most difficult thing I've ever done. It's like facing yourself, facing your
Yes.
own demons, and forcing you to observe yourself objectively, and then you can like grow from that. And it can also be very like beautiful. Like you can experience this like pure love as well, this
Hmm.
connection to everything and everyone.
I think that's powerful, and I know, and what you're saying that it's totally true, and I think for me it could be through different things as well as psilocybin as well will have that forcing me to confront it, and I did do some ceremonies as well when I was in Colombia. I did two for ayahuasca, but well, one was out of ceremony, the other was a retreat, and in this retreat it was hard for me. And I also did a psilocybin retreat at one point in Colombia. It was very hard. These retreats, there were only two, they were each just one night. So what you did was a whole week. I can't imagine this because when I did it one night, I, like you said in your podcast about meditation, you said everyone says when they're forced to meditate, but my mind just can't think and all this. But the truth is, for all of us, we have that difficulty. And for me, I have the difficulty, and I haven't forced myself to confront the meditation yet, and it's something I have to do as part of my journey. But it's when people talk about how it's a powerful experience, like it's not fun. It's not a game. It's not a party. This is like incredibly difficult to do, and it's an incredibly powerful thing, an important thing to do, and it's I have a lot of respect for you for your involvement in that community. So you go for a week. What was that like?
Yeah, well, one thing I want to say about like things like ayahuasca and mushrooms. So ayahuasca, mushrooms, LSD, most of these what we call uh, psychedelic drugs. I don't like to call them drugs. I like to call them medicine.
Of course.
They what they have in common is that they either contain DMT or they turn into DMT in your body. And so DMT is known as like the God molecule, they say. So it dissolves the ego and allows you to melt into the cosmic soup of everything. And
Very
that in
powerful stuff.
itself is very powerful, right? It's the dissolution of the ego can be thought of as a death of yourself. So sometimes you experience this actual like what feels like death. And what I would say, like you said, it's like we're not doing it to party. We're not doing it to like have an awesome time. We're doing it because we want to dig deeper into ourselves and become better people, both for ourselves and for others and for this world. And I think it's something that's really needed right now.
And especially these ceremonies, like I'm sure the one you're referring to, where the way they organize these things is you must meditate first. It's all rituals. It's all like meditation and like it's very disciplined and organized. And that was the hard part for me. The hardest part is like sitting still, doing these. They're doing these crazy instruments, like rattling it in your ear and all that stuff. And yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with rape as well. Uh, what do you think of that, rape?
Yeah, I think rape is also a very powerful tool. They say that it's like related to ayahuasca, so they call ayahuasca abuela or the grandmother, and the rape is more like the father. And um, it's a tobacco that's grown in a very specific way without chemicals, very organic and natural, and it's mixed with like ashes and herbs and ground into a very fine powder, and then it's actually blown into the nostrils. So you can blow it yourself, or someone else can blow it into your nostrils. And you, what I would say is that it's almost like a forced meditation. Like it hits you, and you're like,
Yes.
"Whoa!" And all of a sudden,
Yeah.
it clears your entire mind, and all you can focus on is the sensation. And
Yes.
so, this medicine is used often as a preparation for ayahuasca, or it can also be used during a ceremony. Like I had an experience where I was like really struggling with the ayahuasca, and I was going deep into a dark place, and the shaman came over and he was like, "Take the rape," and I was like, "No!" Like I was like, "That's the last thing I want." And I like felt like I was gonna throw up. And sometimes the rape makes you throw up. And what was interesting is he gave me the rape, and then the the desire to throw up completely went away. It like helped me. Um, so I would say rape is great. It's a powerful tool. I've actually moved away from it a little bit because it is tobacco, and you
It's
can
sort
have
of corrosive to the body, I
a
guess.
dependency on it. And I
Really?
was, yeah,
Really?
like tobacco has nicotine. It's slightly addictive.
I know about that, but you're saying you developed a dependency from rape
Well, I was doing it every day
every day.
for a
Wow.
while, which I mean, if you go to Brazil, if you go see the Yawanawa, they're doing it like every few hours. So some say, okay, every day is not so bad, but um, I didn't really,
So I
you
guess
know, I
they're
didn't want to
totally
do it every
addicted.
day.
Yeah, they
Yeah, I
must
don't know if
totally
I
be
would call it.
addicted
I don't
if they're
know.
doing it every couple hours. Yeah.
I don't know if I want to use the word addictive, but they really believe in the medicine and they use
Yeah.
it a lot. And for me, when I'm like, all right, I want to do the meditation without the rape because it was a crutch for me. It was like I want to go sit and meditate for 10 minutes, but like I can't just sit there and meditate. Like let me do the rape and then I'll do the meditation.
Yeah, I feel that.
And I was like, I like the thing is with any of these psychedelics medicines, like these are just tools to get us on a path. Like people go and meditate for 20 years in the Himalayas, and they also achieve these like higher states of
Isn't
consciousness,
this
right?
a McKenna quote, what you're saying now? It's a Terrence McKenna said this. It's like there are two ways to get there. One is just like a tool to get there instantly, I guess. I don't know. So I feel like that's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, and I would say I don't know the quote, but like for me, I think there's an infinite number of ways, and it's just about being present, about being aware of your own emotions, yourself, and then your relations with others. And if we can like increase this level of awareness, we can improve the level of our relationships, our relationship with ourselves, with nature, with others. I think it's like, people like want to fix the world, but it's like work on yourself first, right?
Yeah.
Like you think that you have some policy that the government can implement that's going to make the world better. Like what's your relationship with yourself? Do you have your own family under control? How's your relationship with your lover? Like if you haven't got those figured out, like you don't need to keep expanding your area of concern.
And
Once you improve yourself, yeah, all the other relationships become easier.
of course, and I love you saying that because you really are you're the kind of guy who you stick to what you believe. This is what you've been saying for years. You said this on your podcast. You said, uh, "Fix yourself, and then everything will fall into place." And that's like just such a great way to live. And I and you for me, so often I find myself just completely distracted by events outside of my control, such as like world events, things like that. It's been a long process for me to get off of that, to get to a place where I feel I'm more attached to my real self and real world ambitions and like my mental self and all of it. So yeah, you've been a big influence in that way. Like, it's good that there are people like you saying this, and yeah,
Thank you, Ben. And I would just a point of clarity, I would say I don't like to say fix yourself. Like I would say just work on yourself. Like
work on
we are
yourself,
enough the way we are
of
already,
course.
and we have to accept ourselves too. But like yeah, like take the time to sit with your thoughts and see what comes up. And like breath work, meditation, psychedelics, yoga. These are just tools to get to know ourselves. Like in yoga, we sit in discomfort. We go into these postures that like they're not comfortable, they're not fun, but we
Not at
do it
all.
anyway
Yeah.
because we want to breathe through that discomfort and then we become comfortable there. So like things that used to be uncomfortable for me, now I'm like, okay, like yeah, hold my breath for 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
nothing.
I
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. And where are you based currently, if you don't mind me asking?
So in this very moment, I'm at my cousin's house in Florida, but my
Nice.
home, I call my home Costa Rica. And I don't think I've updated you fully on all this, but I bought, man, I found another town in Costa Rica called Santa Teresa, which,
Oh, so I was living it right around there for a few months
oh,
in
Montezuma, right?
Montezuma, exactly. Very
Yeah,
hippie, yeah.
I fell in love. It was Puerto Escondido vibes all over
Yes,
again.
yes, yes.
And things just like everything just fell into place for me to stay there. And I was looking for a place to settle down. And I I bought two houses and some land, and like I'm growing fruit.
Wow.
I have people living in the other house, and I'm actually trying to build like a yoga spiritual community, like a place where
Wow.
people can go and transform and heal. And it's called Casa Morfo Azul, which means the house of the blue morpho butterfly.
Casa
So
Morfo Azul.
yeah,
Casa Morfo Azul.
it's this beautiful blue butterfly, gigantic, and it's such a symbol of transformation, of course, because this caterpillar goes into a cocoon for a couple of months and becomes this like majestic butterfly. And that's exactly the space that I'm creating for people, like a place where people can go, like turn off their cell phones, put their bare feet on the ground, do some therapies which I'm going to offer, and like go deep into themselves and experience their own metamorphosis.
So ultimately, will people be able to like book a week there or something and just kind of heal and like do you have something set up currently where someone can stay there? Or how is it so far?
Yeah, right now it's like it's still a vision. I do have I have kind of longer term guests staying at one house, and
Nice.
then I live in the second house. Um, and while I travel, I rent out my house. So there's actually, someone staying at my house right now.
Nice.
But my goal is to kind of like build like a yoga studio and a casita and
Yeah.
like outdoor kitchen, outdoor hanging areas,
Yeah, you're
maybe like sauna, ice bath, maybe even nude sunbathing area,
nice.
and like just like make this space where it's just like it's safe to heal. And I would love to be there with other people that are there for their journey and offer them yoga, Thai massage, mushrooms, sauna, ice bath, like any of this type of stuff. And you're just there like with the nature. I have monkeys at my house every day.
Wow.
I have
Wow.
hummingbirds,
That's really
butterflies,
cool.
yeah, like all sorts of wild
Wow.
animals.
I love how you are so unafraid to be creating, to be building, and not consuming. This is all, I feel like everything I've seen from you, it's like you're not afraid to build, and like it's so awesome. Like you've created what it sounds like you're creating a community, and like people are drawn to it, and it's just this vibe you're presenting, and people are buying it because it's a good vibe. Like, so it's like, yeah, I really respect you for that, and it's very inspiring for me as well for what I want to do, like setting my own life up and everything. um but inspiring stuff, like that's crazy. So you're really like a mogul, yeah. You're a cool, you're a guru, yeah. I don't know how to describe you, but you're doing
uh,
that. You're doing it. You're living the dream. It seems in terms
yeah,
of, yeah.
I think and I wouldn't even say like it's about like not being afraid, because I am afraid,
Mm-hmm.
and what I do is very challenging. Like everyone is going to have fear, and a lot of times the biggest fear, it was for me at least, is a fear of judgment from other people. And like especially when you go so far outside of the mold, like people I grew up with are doing things that are so different or so traditional, like jobs and
Of course.
suburbs, families. And I just kind of went chased this dream, and the dream evolved over time. But along the way, yeah, there was a lot of moments where I'm like I was afraid, or like I took a big leap of faith, or I did something that was very challenging. Um,
But you stuck
and
to your guns the whole time.
yeah, I think sometimes people see like the life you have, and they're like, "Wow, like how lucky, how amazing."
I
And
don't think it's luck with you. I think this is practice, dedicated, determined meditation, introspection, and ambition and purpose. And it's like very much the opposite of luck, I think, in this context.
yeah, I would say that I worked really hard. Like I saved and invested a lot of money when I was an engineer, and that allowed me, the space, this freedom, um, to live in a different way. And another thing that really helped me financially get to this place was Bitcoin. I'm a big proponent of
You've
like
always been a believer in
financial
Bitcoin.
financial freedom, right? And I think the fiat currency, like the traditional currencies, all currencies right now are, I would consider fiat, which means they're not backed by anything. In 1971, the US stopped using gold to back the currency. And so the government can print as much money as it wants. And we work so hard for it and like think that it's something so valuable, but like they'll just print another $1 trillion tomorrow and your money will be worth less. So I held my money in assets like stocks and Bitcoin and real estate. And then I sold that to buy the house that I have now.
Nice. And so your background in tech, coming up around this time, this is when Bitcoin is entering the zeitgeist. It's entering the I don't know, but like it's entering public knowledge. You were an early investor, um, because of you believed in it like from an early time. That's my understanding of it. And what was that like? Like, was that a big leap of faith in and of itself? Choosing Bitcoin when at a time when really no one believed in it.
Yeah, I would say I had kind of like heard of it and brushed it off like since
Yeah,
like 2013. I was like, I don't know, digital currency could be hacked, whatever. And then finally, like it came up on my radar again in 2017, and I read the Bitcoin white paper, which is like the original document written by Satoshi Nakamoto.
that anonymous Japanese guy, right? Um,
Yeah. And I was like, as soon as I read the white paper, I was like, yes, immediately invested a few $1,000s into Bitcoin.
nice.
And I think it's funny because like I hear like critics of Bitcoin still, and I'm like, did you read the white paper? Like, do you actually understand Bitcoin? Because not to like sound arrogant, but like I haven't really come across somebody that truly understands Bitcoin and is and thinks it's like a scam.
Yeah,
So like,
not arrogant, but you stick to your guns with Bitcoin, with anything. You stick to your guns, and that's a good trait. Like it's a, and but you think about it deeply too. So it's I'm a believer in crypto as well. I think naturally our currency will have to get to that point where we have a more decentralized like um. I think yeah, we're heading in that way with everything. Things are getting more efficient, more optimized. Things we're realizing are redundant now. We didn't think were redundant before. There's this quantum computing stuff, AI stuff. I remember you talked to me a lot about AI. I remember you were also early on AI. Maybe this I'm misremembering, but wasn't that some topic we had been discussing in Mexico AI?
I don't remember what we talked about in Mexico for AI, but I have been getting into it recently.
Nice. Tell me about
Um,
that.
Mostly just like the use of ChatGPT to, well, I would say make my work easier and better, right? Like I use it to do a lot of research on health and wellness. It's, an order of magnitude more powerful than Google.
Of course.
And, but there's a skill to it of like learning like how to use it. Like what questions do you ask? And I think
Prompt engineering.
yeah, and I think the fun part too is you can kind of like train your AI in a sense. So you can
Mm-hmm.
be like, I want you, like for example, I got into traditional Chinese medicine, and I was seeing a Chinese medicine doctor who was doing acupuncture for me and giving me herbs and telling me what conditions I had and giving me advice. And so, I would only get an hour of time with him per week. So I would take what he gave to me, and I went to ChatGPT and I said, okay, you are a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, and I have these conditions. Like, what foods should I be eating? What should I be doing to optimize my body based on this condition? And it just like it aided me so much in my research, and I was able to vastly improve like some digestive issues, energy issues that I had um, using this, and then that also led me to kind of go into health and wellness as a business, because now what I'm doing is I'm building this academy of wellness, and I'm launching a one-on-one personalized coaching program called the Vitality Mastery Program. And so, like, I'm going to work with clients. We're going to fill out a questionnaire. I'm going to work with them and figure out what their specific condition is or what they want to improve in their life. And I'm going to use AI as a research assistant to get them on the correct diet, the right supplements, give them all the right tools to help optimize their health. And then they're also going to have this like library of information that I'm building in the Wellness Academy as part of the package.
I like that idea a lot. That sounds like it could help a lot of people. Like you could help a lot of people. Like you're a very good, naturally like a life coach, and but more than a life coach, like a real overall bigger picture kind of guy. And I love how you're also not afraid to monetize things. That's something that, especially in the spiritual community, a lot of the time people talk negatively about chasing financial success and the thing is, in my opinion, it's sort of like the code of life. It's not like we're chasing financial money. What we're chasing is the freedom to do things with that and what that will entail and how we can better the world through that process. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that money is sometimes villainized in the spiritual community or by people that don't have a lot of it. What we see is that there's people amassing huge amounts of wealth and using it to their own means, and there's other people who are struggling to get by.
Of course.
And so what this creates is this picture in these people's mind that money is evil, that money corrupts. And I think that just by having that viewpoint that money is bad means that you're not going to attract money, because you attract what you already have and what you believe that you're worthy of. But if you say money's not important to me, then the universe is listening. The universe is always listening, and it's not going to reward you with money if you are saying that money's not valuable to you. And once we recognize that money is a form of energy, right? It's like potent energy. If I had $100 in my hand right now, there's so many things that I could turn that $100 into. So it's potent. And like, for example, me building my wellness space in Casa Morfo Azul, this retreat center, I can't do that really without money. Like, it would be difficult. It would take me a lot of work, a lot of time, and you need the resources to do these things.
Yes. And
And
yeah, I think on a psychological level, like all the people, the haters who are saying looking at someone chasing their dream and becoming successful, the basic kind of psychological thing is that they really don't believe in themselves. They don't believe they can do it. So they're like, why the hell is he doing it if I can't do it myself? And just having that initial self doubt is what would cause people to become jealous and hating and criticizing. Um, Obviously, criticism is valid when it's valid, but there is a tendency of people to look at someone chasing their dream and become bitter about it. But not everyone is bitter about it. Some people see it and they believe in themselves, so they use it as fuel for them and motivation and competitiveness. And like competitiveness is also villainized a lot, I think, in our society. But it's really like a love, like it's like a driving force of human creation and achievement. And I think it's a great thing. Um, yeah. So let's get into this thing about the Amazon because I'm really intrigued by this. So just paint the picture. What are you planning for the Amazon? Have you done something like this before? Just go into it.
never done anything like this before. I actually just got the chills when you asked me about this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
This is
like
this is
yeah.
this is one of those times where I am a little bit scared because like moving to Costa Rica, like that was a big like leap of faith, jumping into the unknown, and this feels like an order of magnitude more like, oh my God, I'm gonna be living on a sailboat, 120-foot sailboat called the Infinity,
Wow.
and I met this guy. I spent a day on this boat back in August of last year. My friend of mine owns a retreat center in Costa Rica called Anamaya, very beautiful resort. And he organized a boat tour to go to this island for a day. And me and a bunch of my friends went on it. And I literally had one of the best days of my life. And I got the captain's phone number, Captain Clemens, and I texted him and I said, wow, I had such an amazing time on this boat. Like, if you ever need a crew member, let me know. And nothing happened of it for a long time. And in reality, I probably didn't have the capacity to do something like this back then. But he texted me only 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was very recent. And he's like, we need a crew member. Like, we want you to come teach yoga and help build community on the boat. And also, like just be a crew member, help with all of the things on the boat. And I was like, well, like this engineering job that I thought I was going to start, I was going to do like a part-time engineering job to get a little extra money. And it fell through at the last minute. And I was like, I actually have like really a lot of freedom right now. And I have my house rented out. And I'm like,
Nice.
I'm gonna go for it. So I just like on the spot decided to do it. And so what we're gonna do is I'm flying tomorrow to Cuba, and we are gonna
Wow.
set sail on Saturday from Cuba to Brazil. So we're sailing across the open sea.
How far
From
is that?
It's about a month of sailing.
What? And
Yeah.
and how many people will be on that boat?
So this is an interesting boat. There's 15 of us, and we're all crew. There's zero passengers. This isn't like a business. It's not like a financial thing. Literally, like, this captain is so passionate to help save the planet. Like we are flying this flag of the Earth flag to promote love and unity and to raise awareness about these things that are going on in our environment and planet
So
Earth.
so no one pays to get on board? Or do you guys like split the total cost of the voyage or something? But it's not something someone can just sign up for and do?
Like I'm gonna be chipping in a little bit financially just to help cover the cost of food and stuff. But it's kind of like a volunteer thing. Like it's like a room and
Wow.
board in exchange for this opportunity.
It's
And
amazing.
but no one's like really making money. We just want enough money to be able to do it, but
Yes.
not like he's not trying to get rich,
Of
right? And
course,
actually,
yeah.
the money that he does raise goes towards funding the trip, and he also is involved in another charity um, called You on Earth. So it's kind of like a cryptocurrency. Actually, you can pay. I believe it costs $1, and you get 1 square meter of land
Wow.
that is protected. So it's like a geotag piece of land. You can like look at it on a map. There's an app, and it'll like show you like this is your square meter of land, and they work with different foundations to like protect that land.
That sounds very intriguing. Like it sounds like of all the new coins, that one sounds like there's something there really. And so you'll be on this boat, start in Cuba, you wind up, are you're going into the Amazon from there, or
Yeah, so it's
how's
gonna
that gonna
be
work?
a month on the open sea to get to Brazil, and then we'll be at the mouth of the Amazon, and we're literally gonna navigate the Amazon River all the way deep into Amazonia,
On
all
that
the
boat.
way on this boat. It has a
Wow.
motor too, so like we'll use sails and the motor as needed, and we're gonna go into the state of Acre, which is bordering Peru, so it's already very deep into Amazonia and Brazil, and we're going to meet with some local tribes, including the Yawanawa tribe, who I spent that week with. And it's just like it's creating these bridges of unity, and we'll come back down the Amazon River eventually, and we're going to end with the UN climate change conference in Belém, Brazil, which is like a global big
Of
conference,
course.
and we're gonna show up there with the boat, flying our planet Earth flag and spreading the message. Oh,
Oh,
and another cool thing about it is we're creating a documentary in the
amazing.
process. And
Is one of the people on board a camera guy? Like
we're
he
actually
who has a camera, or will you all shoot parts of it? Or
we're gonna work with like a professional team
nice.
to make this documentary, and we're hoping to launch it to a very broad audience. To be honest, I don't even know all of the details. Like I know the
Yeah,
broad strokes. Like
yeah. We don't
I'm
have
just
to
kind
get
of
into anything like that now, but
yeah.
like, but yeah, I'm aware of kind of like what this is gonna be. It's a significant thing you're doing, and like it's really impressive, and I'm gonna follow it. I can't wait for the documentary, and um, yeah, I think this is gonna be like a really cool thing. What you're planning on doing.
Thank you. And what I would say, if you want to learn more about this, There's a website, infinityexpedition.org. We can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I can put it in the
Um,
description.
there's already been like three documentaries about this boat. They did the Northwest Passage, which is like a really like treacherous Arctic passage through the ice, and they also went to Antarctica. So like a lot of like pretty wild things
Wow.
these guys have done already, and I think we're currently raising money for new sails for the boat.
All right. Yeah,
So if anyone's interested in contributing,
of course.
it would be helpful for us.
Yeah, guys, make sure you donate to the sales if you're able to. But yeah, all right, go on. Sorry. Yeah, I was
um,
just speaking to whoever ends up listening this.
yeah, if you feel the call, if this mission resonates with you, we could always use the support. But Captain said we're gonna make it to Brazil one way or the other. So um,
Nice.
it's interesting. It's just like how well supplied we'll be, but
Yeah, and
they
you'll
always
make
make do
it.
with what they got. Yeah,
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's
and
fascinating.
the captain's wife and three children are on board the ship as well,
Wow.
including like a 2 year old. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like a interesting guy, interesting vision, and a really interesting thing. I'm definitely gonna watch that documentary. Um, yeah, I always love watching like content from my friends that my friends make, like podcasts and whatever it is. You know, it's I find it interesting. Um, Anyway, so we've gone over your background, we've gone over your journey, spirituality, everything. We've gone over this plan for the Amazon. So tell me about what's your vision for. So life is all about the journey, right? I think you totally know that much. It's not like about this one day when we'll get everything we dreamed of. Where do you see that journey taking you in the future after this Amazon thing? So you've got this thing in Santa Teresa. We'll have to link that somehow or to it because that sounds really cool. And from then, where do you see it going? Do you think you're all in with this Santa Teresa for the near term? You're like a serial entrepreneur. You're exactly who I think of when I think of the term serial entrepreneur because you're always doing something. So I guess it's impossible to predict where you see this journey taking you, but do you have a vibe, a feeling, an indication?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I would say for sure, like I'm focused on this journey, and then what comes next, I'll focus on
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, you're not
Um,
worried about it. Yeah,
I don't like to plan too far ahead because you just never know what life's gonna bring.
of course.
But I will talk a little bit about what I see as important. Um, I'm seeing a lot of people, especially in the United States, unhealthy, unhappy. So I want to keep working on this health and wellness as a business, and I wanna create this space for people to come retreat to, and I also want to host my own yoga retreats, which I've done a few times,
I
but
remember.
I want to scale it up a little bit next time, and maybe work with a business partner like Anamaya, who already has a thriving retreat center where I can get host 20 people easily. My house is more like would be more like a private retreat because it wouldn't hold so many people. But I would love to. I think like spending a weekend retreat is one of the most powerful ways that you can like learn about yourself and grow and heal. It's at least it's been in my path, so I want to offer that to others as well. And my other passion is really to live in community.
Nice.
I have this beautiful house. It's in nature. It's about 10 minutes from Montezuma and about 25 minutes from Santa Teresa. But I find myself like desiring to live like on a piece of land with other people. So what I'm envisioning is eventually investing into like there's a lot of communities being built
Communes.
In Costa Rica, yeah, where they're like growing food together. There's a shared yoga studio. They eat their meals together. There's all these opportunities to gather as community, like common spaces, co-working, all this stuff like this. Like I want everything that I love to be where I live, where I can walk, and that includes being social, doing yoga, eating organic, delicious food. Um, is I feel it can be isolating sometimes if you have to drive somewhere 30 minutes
Yeah,
to be able to see somebody, right? Like
totally.
I think socializing and living in community, like we can build these things that we love
It's
into our
essential.
lives. And I think that's something that's really lacking. Like when I come to the US, I see people are more closed off
You're
and
right about that.
people are more open where I live in Costa Rica, but I want to go a step further and say, like, how can we build something together? How can we live in community together? And I think this boat is going to be a really awesome experience because it's like a microcosm of that, right? My
Yes.
responsibility on this boat is going to be to build community for the 15 or 20 people on board. And it's a true test because we really can't leave the boat. I mean, you can if you really need to, but like you're on a boat, right?
Yeah.
So we're kind of
Yeah, it's
stuck with each
complicated.
other and we're going to have to learn how to deal with each other.
Yeah.
I think when you have so much money and freedom, sometimes like if someone bothers you, you just like stop spending time
Yeah.
with them, which I understand. But like the trick is going to be to learn how to work with each other because ultimately that's what we have to do. Like if we can't learn to work with each other in small communities, how can we expect to cooperate as a species as a whole on a planet-wide basis?
You're totally right. I actually never had that thought before. What you're saying right now is like, okay, so let me break this down. So, if we're so quick as a society to cut people out of our lives if they're not convenient for what we deem they should be in the moment, if of course it's a different if they're hurting you in some way, and then it's kind of necessary to break that attachment. But if it's sort of like we're so quick in pretty much any little scenario to cut people off, it's like that the whole point of the game of life is to, like, the world, everyone agrees the world would be a much better place if everyone got along. So we have to just force it to happen. Like we have to figure out how to cater ourselves to find common ground with the people around us. And if everyone does that, then everything will be fine. And it's a simple decision to say, instead of cutting people off, I'm going to learn how we can work together to make things work together and have, I've never had this thought, but this is like a real philosophical point you're making about life. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of what it boils down to is communication and self-expression. And a lot of times we have a fear of expressing ourselves, or for me, it was always a fear of confrontation. And so rather than like, if somebody did something that upset me, rather than say something on the spot, I would just kind of let this resentment build up.
Oh, yeah.
And then eventually I would kind of break in a sense and I would end my relationship with that person because I was like, I can't deal with this anymore.
Well,
But did I give them a chance? Like, did I tell them what they were doing was bothering me and how I would like to change my relationship with them? In many cases, no. So this is what I'm trying to work on more now. Like, if somebody bothers you, are you going to tell them or are you going to go complain to somebody else about it?
yeah,
Because
hell
that's
yeah.
that's not going to do
Yeah.
anything, right?
Yeah, it's literally as if our society, in many contexts, encourages the bottling up and resentment, and it's act our society is sort of actively opposed to confrontation, especially among um in relationships, sure, but more so I'm thinking like among men, like in our primitive lives, if we had confrontations, we would confront them directly. Maybe it would be physical fighting, but then you would make up, and you would become so much more connected and understanding through that conflict and confronting it head on when both parties are honest about their uh, problems that they have with the other. But in society, it's now completely sort of unacceptable to handle it that way. And so it's one of the problems with men these days, like that, especially young men are dealing with, is they're all bottling it up all the time because they're not allowed to confront it based on societal standards. And there's a lot of young men in my generation and your generation, it's who are just very like they have like real resentment and huge bitterness issues that's like deep down in them. And I think our society should encourage confrontation more. I think so, or at least not be so opposed to it.
Yeah, I also think it's about creating a safe space for
For
communication.
yes.
So sometimes, right, like let's say I call you out on something that bothers me,
Mhm.
and if you're coming from a place of ego, you're going to get defensive and and react in a certain way. But if you're just allowing what is to be and just listening to my words without judgment, then maybe you would be more open to receiving what I have to say and try to look at it from other person's perspective. And for me, this also ties into the ego death and the use of
Of
psychedelics
course.
and the improvement of self. Because there's a million different perspectives, and I truly believe this, that I don't think anyone is a bad person or intends to be a bad
I
person.
fucking agree completely. Yes.
I think everyone's going through something,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason they behave a certain way is because of their own trauma, their own suffering, their own pain. And so, what I believe in is creating these safe spaces of communication. Like, I think if you have a relationship, you should say, okay, like, let's take once an hour once a week and express ourselves without judgment to each other. Or another example is I have a men's circle in Santa Teresa
Nice.
in Costa Rica. So we meet every 2 weeks. And it's just an opportunity for men, for brothers to be open and vulnerable with other men. And that's not something we have a lot of in society. It's
No.
almost like discouraged. Like you try to share your feelings with another man, and he's like, "Oh, just man up," like, or like, "I don't want to hear this," or "I don't want to see you
Yeah.
cry," or
Or
something. You know?
even what if you our society, even if you try to share your feelings to women as well, other men, other women, almost anyone. It's sort of just encouraged for us to, and for women to be bottling up stuff a lot of the time because we don't want to feel like we're a burden on our partner, on our friend, on etc. etc. Um, but yeah, I think that's a really good point. Um, yeah, it's like you have a lot of really good ideas about the basic things we have to focus on in order to actually uh be at harmony with everything. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think there's this concept of conscious masculinity where like if a man is strong and powerful and confident but also has this ability to be like soft and emotional, and basically I think it's the man's role to create a safe space for a woman or for a family,
I
for a
agree.
partner, right? And when the man is truly like confident and protecting of the woman in a conscious way and holds a safe space, then the woman can really like flourish in her feminine and feel comfortable and safe. So a lot of times, what I see is a lot of people have a victim mentality. They think about how the other person treated them,
1,000,000%. Yeah.
but like, what can I do? How can I do better in this situation? How can I better understand the other person's perspective? How can I make them feel safe enough to share their feelings? Because a lot of times we're not making the other person feel safe enough to share their feelings, because if you explode on someone every time they share their feelings, they're not going to want to share their feelings with you anymore. And then
Yes.
you're going to create this gap in the communication where you're on different planes. You don't understand each other.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, you definitely I definitely see you this thing you're planning with like helping coach people through sort of things like this. I think you're a very convincing messenger for these ideas, and they're very good ideas. Um, yeah, so I'm definitely excited for that. And this thing in Santa Teresa, it's so funny how our lives, like kind of like Puerto, then yeah, Montezuma, like different countries, like but the same places. I'm sure you walked down the street in Montezuma and went to the same beaches, and I was in Santa Teresa, and it's like there may be many more places, but that kind of goes into what is it, like string theory or something, where the people you meet and know are always like in around, but you just never notice it. Like, so I don't know. I think there's a lot of theories about it. I wanted to ask you one thing I wrote down in my notes. Like, so your podcast was called Espiritus Radio, Spirits Radio.
Mhm.
So, what is your take on the spirit? What is the spirit? How is it different from my brain, and how is it different from my body?
It's a powerful question.
Yes, but I think you're the best guy to answer it.
Well, so I see this as having um, three parts, a sort of holy trinity of sorts of body, mind, and spirit. And in order to live our best lives, we want all three of those things to be in harmony. And to me, that's what the yoga practice is. And yoga actually means unity.
And what
So
language? Like Hindi or
in Sanskrit, which is a
Sanskrit?
similar to Hindu, yeah, to Hindi, yeah. Um, so the spirit is kind of this eternal part of us, this eternal flame, and there's many different theories about it. And sometimes it sounds a little woo and out there, but like if you think of this, let's put it this way. I believe that we are all one, and we are kind of like the universe experiencing itself through an infinite number of different perspectives. So this fiber or this thread or this force that holds the universe together um, exists in everything, including us. And so when we are able to like dissolve this ego, we can see this connection to everything else. And our spirit is like this this eternal force that has come and decided to live on this plane in this reality right now through our perspective so that we may experience something and learn and grow, and then that can be taken on, those learnings can be taken on into the next life.
That's really fascinating. Yeah, it definitely makes me think. I'm very existential at heart. Like I've always my whole life been fascinated with that question, which is why is there something rather than nothing? You know, the basic question behind everything, and I think the conclusion I've arrived at so far is, um, well, you know, we could get into a whole other talk, but I'm convinced. People call me crazy, but I'm convinced that we could use science and quantum computing and AI to actually positively identify where our origin is, what point that was, and I think we can see it for ourselves. But that's a whole other hypothetical. I don't want to go down that. I actually talked about it in the first episode of this podcast. So, but yeah, but what I find interesting about life is the people like that I meet along the way, and you're one of the those very interesting people who certainly had a big impact on how I perceive the world and how I act in the world, how what I feel my purpose and everything is. So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for even agreeing to come on this podcast. Like it's crazy that I got you as my second guest. But like I think, yeah, you're just like totally like people talk about. So in our country, in the whole world, everyone's always saying like I'm gonna I'm gonna go and do this thing like for 5 years to get me credibility for this, and then once I have this reputation and this credibility and this experience, then I'll finally do what I want to do. Then I'll finally do my dream. But with some people, they realize at some point that the key is not to do what you want after your plans of this getting to that point. The key is to just do what you want in the like immediately from the start, and it will work itself out eventually. like you don't optimize a product that shouldn't yet exist. It's an expression used a lot in business because it's you're not going to spend a year trying to optimize this perfect product vision you have and then realize there's no market for it. You have to release a simpler version of it first and then go step by step to get the market and all of these things. So you're an example of someone I see who does what they want and who knows how to do what they want. Um, and like, I just love the approach. I love that. I love that energy of not being afraid to build, not being afraid to create, to explore, to learn, always curious, not married to ideas, just trying to figure this life thing out. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Anything final words you want to say? Final plugs you want to make?
Yeah, I guess what you said just kind of sparked an idea of mine is that, one of the drives for living this life the way I have lived it, which is different than most, is I just saw like, do I really want to work for 40 years doing something that didn't give me joy so that I can have a little bit of freedom at the end of my life, right?
Oh
Like
no.
we have this one life as far as we know, and you have to live it the way you want to live it. You have to take chances, and like, yeah, there will be sacrifices along the way. There's certain things that, like, we have to decide what's important to us. Like, for example, I cut out alcohol from my life about 10 years ago.
This is the sorry to cut you off,
And
but this is the consistent thing about the people I respect that I see around me. They all talk about this. So go into this.
well, I think that alcohol, for one, it's a toxin to your body. The way I feel, you're spending hours out late, disrupts your sleep. You wake up hungover, depleted of minerals, and then you try to function in your day. And meanwhile, I was spending $100, $200 on a bar tab in a night. Like, at one point, I think I was spending like $800 a month in alcohol, and I was like, and that's money that could be going into Bitcoin or into my future. And by like cutting this out, like, it gave me time, energy, money to invest into other things. I was working out, I was sleeping 8 hours, and I was making money and I was saving, and I lived like a simple life. Like, I didn't spend a lot of money, and I saved and invested a lot, which gave me the opportunity to do the things I wanted, not have to wait 40 years to retire. Right? Do
Amazing.
you really want to go? You could go live in Mexico when you're 70, but it's not the same as doing
Yeah,
it when you're
hell
30,
no. Of course not. Yeah, yeah. Of course
um,
not.
yeah.
But yeah, you got balls certainly to do all this stuff and yeah, and thanks for coming on. And maybe hopefully one day we can talk again uh on a podcast. But definitely we'll stay in touch and yeah, thank you, Damien.
And
Um
I will do one last plug if you
of
don't mind.
course, of course.
So yeah, if you enjoy this topic, I would love to stay connected with you on Instagram. I am Devotion Damien, and you can message me there to find out more about the wellness program or more about staying at my Costa Rica house, or learn about the Xfinity expedition. And we'll drop some links in the text so you can find everything easily there. And it was, Ben, man, it was such a pleasure being on this podcast with you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. The pleasure's all mine. Yeah, like my mind is blown that you actually agreed. I only had one video out, and like, wow, like you're just agreeing to come on my podcast. It's crazy, and thank you so much. And all right, peace out in three, two, one,
Peace out, homie.
bye.